What makes some memories refuse to die? Why do certain libraries, hidden beneath fire, flood, or centuries of neglect, survive when all reason says they should vanish forever? When I brush away the dust inside an ancient vault, find a tablet that looks too perfect, or note a scroll that should have burned to ash, the question returns: who placed these records here, and what secret did they know about survival that we have forgotten? Imagine stepping through a ruined doorway as dawn breaks. The shadows stretch long. The air carries the scent of old paper and stone. Beneath broken roofs and sealed walls, collections wait, shelf after shelf, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pages, all preserved so well that scholars accuse them of being forgeries instead of miracles. What kept them so complete? Was it luck, disaster, or hidden knowledge handed down through generations? We will unearth palaces where fire saved instead of destroyed. We will venture into caves where dry desert air turned waste into treasure. From Himalayan ice to underwater cities, we will follow clues etched in copper, painted on obsidian, and locked beneath the silt of forgotten harbors. In each place, a new puzzle waits. How did chaos become guardian? How did families outsmart conquerors? And how much have we lost that the world still quietly preserves? Tonight, join me as we unlock 15 lost libraries so astonishingly complete, archivists believed they must be false. Every answer opens a new question. Every recovered voice leads deeper into the mystery. Are you ready to step inside? The clay in this chamber felt colder and smoother than anything I had ever touched, each tablet layered in dust, yet seemingly immune to time. When I stepped into the silent expanse beneath the ruins of ancient Nineveh, the air was thick, old, and heavy, pressing in with the weight of a vanished empire. My lamp flickered, scattering shadows across the walls, but nothing could disguise the astonishing order that greeted me. Racks of tablets, thousands of them, stood row upon row, a petrified testament to an age that remembered everything. Historians had doubted the stories about Ashurbanipal's library for generations. Imagine uncovering over 20,000 clay tablets in such methodical stacks, a collection more complete than any other relic from antiquity. This was not simply accidental preservation. The cataloging was so precise, so meticulous, each tablet inscribed in cuneiform with catalog numbers, thematic sections, and even cross-references. The oldest record-keeping system, built to last, now lay untouched while empires fell and peoples forgot their own kings. Yet, it was the smell that struck me most. Earth, faint and almost sweet, dust undisturbed for over 26 centuries. When I knelt and brushed the edge of a fallen tablet, the fine powder clung to my glove, reminding me that these were not just objects, they were humanity's first great experiment in memory, the labor of countless scribes determined to outpace destruction. To be a guest here, centuries late, is to realize just how much faith these people had in posterity. They recorded prayers, histories, omens, medical recipes, epic tales, countless voices layered into clay, waiting for someone to listen. The walls still bore the marks of fire. Charred traces ran along the higher shelves, a memory of conquest when Babylon's armies descended on Nineveh. What should have been total obliteration instead sealed the room like a kiln. The fire baked the tablets harder, fusing damage with durability. When archaeologists pried open the vaults in the mid-19th century, some even suspected the perfection was a hoax. How could so much survive so neatly, so organized, after catastrophe? There are moments, under the feeble lamp, when even I wonder if the library rebuilt itself out of longing to be found. Ashurbanipal himself, the last great king of Assyria, was known to collect everything. He scoured his realm for knowledge, demanding copies of every tale, every scientific treatise, every scrap of wisdom from peoples he conquered or admired. His library was more than a trophy room. It was a statement to his god Ashur, a monument declaring that memory was the greatest treasure of all. Tablets translated from Sumerian and Babylonian, stories from distant lands, astronomical observations, legal codes, all fixed in place, messages in a language science. Even stranger are the reminders that librarians worked here day and night, cross-referencing, inscribing, cataloging each entry. Tiny wedge-shaped notes, scratched into the edges of tablets, remind whoever handled them to file certain works together, to keep one catalog next to another. Libraries today still dream of such order. As I run a slow hand along the shelves, I cannot help but admire their unbroken intent. This was not simply a storeroom, it was a machine for fighting oblivion. Silence settles here in a way I have never felt elsewhere. A sense that every footstep is a trespass, every breath a negotiation with time itself. The longer I stay, the stronger the feeling that the tablets are watching, waiting for their tails to be lifted from clay once more. Why did this library endure while so many others turned to dust? Was it only the accident of fire, the genius of organization? Or was there some unknown force, some pact with the future, binding these memories to stone? I leave the chamber with one question echoing in my mind. If a king could build a memory this strong, what secrets might still sleep, untouched, in the shadowed corners of other vanished worlds? For every discovery, there is an implication yet to be explored, leading us toward the next impossible archive, and the next locked chapter, waiting in darkness to be found. The villa's atrium echoed with an eerie calm, the kind of stillness only found where lives have been interrupted, not ended. The sun barely pierced the dust clouds swirling through broken columns, and every step across the mosaic floor was like walking through both time and ash. Underfoot, beneath layers of volcanic debris, the world's only surviving library from the classical Roman age, waited, silent, blackened, and miraculously whole. I remember the first time I saw one of the Herculaneum scrolls. At first, it looked more like charred firewood than any book. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius had rolled through this villa at terrifying speed, choking the air, turning soft papyrus to brittle lumps of carbon. In most places, fire means total destruction. But in these rooms, something else happened. Nearly 2,000 scrolls, packed carefully inside wall cabinets and marble-topped chests, were baked but not consumed. The heat carbonized them instantly, locking the ink within hardened shells, transforming them into time capsules that no one could read. Not for centuries, anyway. Their story is a strange one. When Italian workers began excavating the villa in the 18th century, the scrolls tumbled out in handfuls of black, crumbling logs. Scholars could hardly believe their eyes. It seemed impossible. Everyone knew papyrus perished in fire. A library could not survive the apocalypse unleashed by Vesuvius. Critics were quick to cry forgery, to blame some elaborate ruse. Yet as more scrolls emerged, each one packed together, still dusted with volcanic silt, it became clear that this was no trick. Instead, it was one of history's rarest accidents, disaster as preservation. The very reason these treasures survived is why they remained unread for so long. Any attempt to open them meant disaster. The brittle papyrus shattered into ashen flakes at the gentlest touch. For decades, researchers tried every method: steaming, slicing, even unrolling the scrolls underwater, desperate for a glimpse of the words inside. Sometimes all they managed was to destroy what they meant to save. Frustration turned to resignation, and for years the scrolls languished in museum drawers, unreadable mysteries with stories locked deep inside. That has changed. Today, researchers use invisible light and advanced imaging, peeling back the layers with X-rays and computer models, resurrecting entire texts from inside those blackened tubes. Epic poems, philosophical dialogues, and lost works of Greek literature are once again seeing the light, sometimes for the first time in nearly 2,000 years. The thrill of seeing a faint letter emerge, line by line, feels like waking the dead. Yet what I find most haunting, standing in these ruins, is how deliberate the library feels. The scrolls belong almost entirely to philosophy. Many scholars now believe this was the private retreat of a Roman thinker, possibly a follower of the Epicurean school. Imagine the owner, collecting wisdom from across the empire, gathering secrets that might easily have vanished forever if not for this strange meeting of disaster and luck. Cold air fills these rooms, even in high summer, a tangible reminder that the volcano's shadow still lingers. There are fragments of everyday life here, charcoal sketches on the walls, faint traces of a lost garden, half-melted statues beside the desks where someone once read by lamplight. The Herculaneum papyri feel less like relics and more like voices, frozen mid-sentence, holding their breath while centuries pass overhead. What else lies buried, protected by accident, waiting for fingers patient enough, minds curious enough to unlock them? If the fire preserved not just the words, but the dreams and doubts of a lost age, how many more stories are waiting beneath the ash? For every scroll that is brought to light, for every word painstakingly revealed, there may be another locked deeper still, teasing at the edge of our knowledge and daring us to try again. What happened at Herculaneum raises questions about survival and fate that echo through every dark archive we explore next. If memory has a texture, then the air inside the Ben Ezra Synagogue's ancient storeroom was woven from paper and parchment, fragile yet astonishingly resilient. I remember the hush as I stepped into the Geniza, a chamber barely larger than a classroom, yet saturated with the spirit of 1,000 years. The dimness was soft, golden, layered in dust motes that danced in slow spirals. Here, history wasn't curated, but piled, stacked, and abandoned. What should have been a garbage heap became an accidental archive, the kind only fate and faith could produce. Jewish law forbids the destruction of anything carrying the name of God. Communities for generations created Genizas as repositories for worn, damaged, or out-of-date texts, waiting rooms for burial somewhere between holy and forgotten. But the Ben Ezra Geniza was unique. For centuries, it was never emptied. In this small, dry room tucked in the heart of Cairo, every fragment of paper, every parchment letter, every prayer book, contract, shopping list, and undisturbed and untouched. When discovery came, it was like brushing the surface of a fossil bed, only instead of bones, there were documents layered in cryptic chaos. Thousands upon thousands. Each scrap was a portal, a silent witness to lives led in the ever-changing city beyond these walls. I touched a business contract between merchants in the medieval Silk Road, then a child's handwriting on a school tablet, then a recipe for a festival meal, each piece, preserved by Cairo's dry climate and the traditions of its people, managed to resist insects, humidity, mold, the silent destroyers that haunt most archives. The Geniza's chaos had a strange order. There was no categorization, no librarian's guiding hand. Texts from the 10th century lay beside those from the 15th. Some were masterpieces from great scholars, others were half-finished notes, lost letters, and lists of debts or hopes. In the swirl of fragments, specialists found poetry, law, medicine, philosophy, commerce, all the machinery of daily existence preserved as if time itself was reluctant to erase them. Scholars who first examined the Geniza's bounty doubted what they saw. How could so much survive? How could random storage protect what careful archiving so often loses? The suspicion lingered. Perhaps this was too good to be true. Perhaps the texts were forgeries, modern plants, or artificially aged, but careful tests proved otherwise. The room had simply remained intact, its treasures shielded by custom, by climate, and by a kind of benign neglect. The quiet in here felt sacred, a protective silence that seemed to wrap the papers in patience, waiting for futures that would finally treasure their stories. The deeper I searched, the more vivid the voices became. A physician's prescription detailed ailments long vanished. A trader's letter traced the movement of rare spices. A mother's prayer for her children found its way between the leaves of a prayer book. There was sorrow, laughter, bureaucracy, even gossip. Layer upon layer, a portrait of medieval life unfolded, more complete than any ruler's diary or conquest's chronicle. Yet, as I brushed aside another handful of faded scripts, I was reminded how accidental the preservation truly was. No one ever intended this chaos to become an encyclopedia of memory. The Geniza is proof that sometimes preservation chooses its own site. Here, amid the fragments and yellowed edges, is a lesson that organized archives might envy. The fullness of memory grows in unpredictable places. What other forgotten caches might sleep beneath our feet, disguised as trash, shaped by accident but holding entire ages in suspense? For every secret recovered from the Ben Ezra Geniza, there remain countless more secrets folded in the silence of forgotten chambers, each waiting for the next explorer with patience and curiosity to listen. The mystery doesn't resolve here, it deepens, leading our footsteps toward the next improbable library, hidden just out of sight. There is a silence that only ruins can create, and when I entered the shattered palace at Ebla, it wrapped around me like a cloak. The first step was hesitant, crunching dry soil and ancient pottery underfoot. Then, in the half-light, the walls revealed their secret. Tucked into what seemed an ordinary storeroom were rows and stacks of clay tablets, thousands, fused together, their shapes softened and hardened by fire, not with the chaos of destruction, but the order of something bewilderingly preserved. Ebla was thought to be myth for centuries, a legend of a Bronze Age kingdom in what is now Syria, erased so completely from memory that some doubted it had ever existed. But between 1974 and 1975, the soil gave up its secret. Excavators uncovered more than 17,000 tablets, each one etched by scribes 4,400 years ago, contracts, hymns, diplomatic dispatches, and humble ledgers, all organized with a system that rivals any modern archive. But the story of Ebla's survival is almost as mysterious as its sudden disappearance. The palace burned. Fire roared through the chambers, consuming wooden shelves, pillars, and tapestries. Yet that inferno, meant to obliterate, sealed the library instead. Shelves collapsed, trapping the tablets. The heat was so intense, the clay hardened permanently, no longer fragile, but locked in time. The fire, a force of forgetting, became a vessel for remembering. As I ran my fingers across the welded ridges of baked clay, I imagined the scribes at work, their styluses pressed into tablet after tablet, a symphony of wedge-shaped signs recording the heartbeat of a civilization. There was something hauntingly methodical about Ebla's archive. Tablets were grouped by type, financial records here, religious texts there, letters to far-off kingdoms in another corner. This was not mere storage, it was an act of intention, a people planning for posterity. Perhaps even for catastrophe. Experts who first cataloged the Ebla tablets wondered at their completeness. How can so many survive so thoroughly protected when even a few embers would usually spell the end? Some suggested a trick, an intrusion, perhaps contamination from another era. But the tablets were authentic, unmistakably Bronze Age, each inscribed in the ancient Eblite language, a lost voice waiting to be heard. Reading the tablets is to glimpse a world both familiar and alien. Kings debated treaties with distant empires. Merchants negotiated long journeys for copper and wool. Priests recorded rituals and prophecies. In the margins were notes, corrections, even personal prayers. One tablet described a shipment of grain and sheep. Another contained a hymn to the city's patron deity, calling for protection not just from enemies, but from oblivion. I stood amid those tablets and wondered how many stories slipped away from other cities, consumed by fire and flood, leaving only ash. Here, catastrophe preserved more than prosperity ever could. It is a paradox that echoes through every ancient library, a lesson about memory and survival, about the unpredictable ways the past chooses to endure. Ebla's clay fortress is more than an archaeological wonder. It is a messenger from an era most thought erased. Each tablet, hardened by disaster and deep time, carries whispers of lives, hopes and fears that still resonate across centuries. For every line deciphered, 100 remain in suspense, unopened sentences holding their breath. What other lost archives rest beneath the world's forgotten soils, waiting for fire and fate to make them eternal? The journey does not pause here. There are more rooms, more secrets, deeper mysteries waiting just ahead in the Chronicles of the Forgotten. Imagine standing at the edge of the Judean desert as dawn breaks, the pale blue sky fading over rugged cliffs and the faint shimmer of the Dead Sea stretching into eternity. The air is dry and carries an ancient chill, the kind that makes each breath feel borrowed from another time. Here, in silent caves carved into limestone, I found the remnants of an ancient library, a collection hidden for 2,000 years, sealed against history's storms and now unveiled under careful hands. It began as the smallest discovery, a clay jar nestled in sand, its lid sealed with pitch and hope. Inside were scrolls, the papyrus and parchment, wrapped in linen as if someone planned for an exile, an escape, or a reunion that never happened. The Bedouin shepherd who stumbled upon that first jar in 1947 must have felt awe and confusion, holding words too old to read, too intact to believe. More jars followed, more caves revealed their secrets, each with scrolls arranged almost ritually. Biblical texts, hymns, commentaries, and rules from a community that lived by law and hope. The preservation was astonishing. For centuries, scholars believed ancient Judean texts could not survive beyond fragments. Paper decays, parchment crumbles, insect and mold reduce ink to fading stains. Yet here, scrolls surfaced bearing entire chapters, entire books, entire histories. The desert did its part. Caves shielded the manuscripts from harsh sun, a stillness within keeping temperature and humidity at just the right balance. Historians argued, at first, about how complete these archives seemed. How could so much survive, so well organized? Was this accidental, or did the people of Qumran know they were building a vault for memory? The evidence hints at intention. Every scroll labeled, some with titles, some with notes describing rules or prayers. Parts of the ancient Hebrew Bible appeared here for the first time, unchanged, unedited. Mystical commentaries on Genesis and Isaiah, letters between leaders debating law, faith, or survival. The sheer diversity fuels questions. Was Qumran the library of a single sect, or a hidden repository for many voices, each fearing annihilation? The deeper I wandered through the caves, the stronger the sense of guardianship. It was not just about preservation. It was about silence. At midday, when sunlight crawled into the mouth of one high grotto, I found a tiny jar, still sealed. The clay flaked under my thumb, and the scrolls inside made a soft, papery sigh. No library should endure this long, yet the voices tangled in each line, the script still sharp in faded brown ink, insisted they belonged to the future as much as to the past. Reading them is like listening to a chorus from another world. Prophecies foretelling disaster and rescue, stories of desert wanderings, instructions for rituals forgotten by all but memory. The scrolls seem less like documents and more like companions, living reminders of a community waiting for return, or perhaps just for someone to listen. Each page is a bridge between languages, faiths, and hopes, connecting invisible lines across centuries of longing. I lingered in the caves, knowing more questions lie here than answers. For each scroll opened and preserved, there are hundreds still sealed in darkness, waiting beyond reach. Were these the only archives, or do more sleep further in the stone, packed away by scribes knowing they might never see sunlight again? As the sun set behind the cliffs, I realized the real library was not just in what survived, but in how these fragments compel us forward, each discovery opening another door, another mystery, guiding us deeper into archives dust has not yet claimed. What waits past this threshold is unknown, but the journey has only just begun. Dust rose behind each step as I walked the edge of the Egyptian desert, the midday sun stinging my eyes and transforming everything to bright white and shadow. Nothing at first hinted that beneath this quiet ground lay one of history's greatest libraries, created not by scholars or kings, but by the ordinary act of throwing things away. Oxyrhynchus, once a bustling Greco-Roman town, would have been forgotten entirely, if not for its rubbish heaps. Yet it is in these ancient garbage mounds that one of the most complete and astonishing archives ever assembled was born, out of accident, neglect, and the peculiar preservation power of the desert itself. It started in the late 19th century. British archaeologists, searching more for monuments than manuscripts, noticed local workers digging through layers of compacted trash. But instead of shells or bones, they were pulling out papyri, scraps and scrolls, sometimes wrinkled and crumbling, sometimes astonishingly whole. There were bits of poetry, government edicts, contracts, personal letters, even shopping lists and lost works by famous ancient playwrights. It was not a royal treasury, but a city's living memory, cast aside day after day, year after year, for centuries. The secret to Oxyrhynchus's preservation was simple luck and unfathomable dryness. The city stood far from the Nile's floods, and for over a millennium, the sand and wind kept its garbage sealed away. In climates more forgiving, paper disintegrates quickly, swallowed by insects, moisture, or time. Here, under the sun's eternal gaze, each tossed note and torn book survived as if waiting for someone to read them once more. At first, the sheer volume confounded even the experts. More than 500,000 fragments emerged, an avalanche of voices, rich and poor, merchant and scribe, priest and school child. The content was jumbled, not filed. One moment you would be reading a marriage contract, the next you'd find a fragment of Sappho's poetry or a lost play of Menander. Some pieces were trivial, others profound, but piece by piece, the city's life stitched itself back together across the centuries. It was so improbable, so vast, that accusations soon followed. Some critics insisted such a find had to be a trick or a late invention, but every test, every faded Greek or Coptic character confirmed the truth. These were not forged. They were the accidental time capsules of daily life, preserved by sand and circumstance, layered in centuries of dust. Sorting the fragments became a puzzle with no straight edges and no clear end. Teams of scholars pored over parchment and papyrus, slowly piecing together contracts, legal cases, mythological stories, and fragments of lost scripture. In one pile, a note from a teenager begging her mother for new shoes. In another, a tax receipt from a struggling farmer. With every page uncovered, Oxyrhynchus revealed not just its official history, but its humanity. Its worries, its laughter, its mundane, and its mysterious. As I sifted through brittle layers under the bright sky, I felt the weight of all those forgotten hands, each page once held, each note once a hurried thought. The accidental archive of Oxyrhynchus endures as a reminder that history's best preservers are not always its kings or its scribes, but the habits of everyday life, the leftovers and throwaways left to fate. What other traces wait, lost in rubbish or ruins just beyond our ordinary gaze? For every tale recovered from these sands, many more linger beneath, veiled by time and silence, urging the patient explorer onward to the next improbable discovery. The forgotten, after all, have their own ways of reaching out to be remembered. Light falls slowly in the temple of Edfu. As morning touches the ancient sandstone, hieroglyphs gleam in gold and blue, their outlines rising from walls that have endured for more than 2,000 years. I walk between massive columns, my footsteps echoing, lost among carvings that speak to a civilization obsessed with memory. Edfu is not a library in the traditional sense. Instead, it is something more unusual, a temple where stone itself has become the page. These walls tell a story in layers. Mud brick and granite, dressed with ritual scenes and formal texts, record ceremonies, myths, and laws engineered for eternity. The builders of Edfu, priests and masons, sought to encode all knowledge of their faith, every chant, every gesture, every festival, in images and symbols designed to outlast papyrus and parchment. They inscribed prayers on pillars, chronicled the origin of the gods in courtyards, and mapped out religious processions along corridors as if future worship would only be possible if the blueprint remained perfect. The air here is close, dry, and tinged with the sharp smell of old stone. As the sun climbs higher, shadows slip across reliefs, changing the look of each symbol. Unlike a conventional library, where books can be lost or stolen, the knowledge of Edfu is impossible to move. The temple itself is the archive. Every block, every painted ceiling, every modest doorway is a storage device for a vanished way of thinking. It is an act of stubborn remembrance in a world where memory is easily erased. I run my palm along the cool granite and find thousands of lines of script. These are not random notes or daily ledgers. Edfu's inscriptions are exhaustive. Ritual instructions repeated again and again, myth retold from multiple angles, detailed lists of offerings and sacred animals. In the midst of translation work, Egyptologists have noted that the same sections appear in 3, 4, even 5 places. This is deliberate. Redundancy keeps memory alive even when parts fade. Many who first encountered the temple's completeness suspected later tampering. How could so much ritual knowledge, so much historical detail, survive whole while wars burned neighboring cities and rivals hacked at monuments for power? But the records are authentic, carved by dedicated hands, preserved by obsessive ritual, protected for centuries by accident and design alike. Moving deeper, I catch a glimpse of old paint, still vivid after generations where most colors have faded. Some spaces feel untouched by time. In one corner, the hymn to Horus is etched in glorious detail, recounting a drama of birth, betrayal, and renewal. Elsewhere, a catalog of sacred implements is listed with the surety of a trained archivist marking inventory. The temple is a living reference book, and its guardians once believed the world depended on these walls to hold their knowledge together. Edfu's atmosphere is both hushed and charged, a stillness filled with the tension of purpose. Not just a building, but a memory machine, a fortress against forgetting. It survived invasion by waves of conquerors, storms, and the drift of sand. Most remarkably, it survived the loss of the old religion itself. Now, as I read the stories these stones still tell, I realize how much the world owes to walls that insisted on remembrance. What secrets linger carved behind columns or buried in foundations, waiting for scholars to decipher once more? The granite memory of Edfu stands as a visible challenge to oblivion, but so many questions remain, echoing through the temple's dark corridors, guiding us on to the next site where memory and mystery are preserved, perhaps in even more unexpected ways. Mist clings to the ground at Nalanda in the early morning, curling around broken stone and the quiet, sunken outlines of old courtyards. The ruins lie sprawled across the flatlands of Bihar, India, a maze of red bricks, toppled pillars, and steps that vanish beneath green water and moss. This was once the world's largest monastic university, vibrant with thousands of students and a legendary library that scholars believed held all the wisdom of the Buddhist world. When the invaders came at the end of the 12th century, Nalanda was said to have burned for months, its countless manuscripts fueling pyres remembered in horror for generations. For centuries, the story was simple: a total loss, a black hole in the heart of history. The fires had been so thorough, the violence so absolute, that even hope seemed brittle. But Nalanda kept one last secret, held by earth and water. In the 21st century, as conservation teams braved mud and stagnation in forgotten crypts below the ruined halls, they discovered the unthinkable. Beneath centuries of flood and silt, hidden chambers had kept palm leaf manuscripts astonishingly intact. The fire had never reached them. The water, thick with mud, starved out the air, and within this oxygenless pocket, paper, ink, even lashings and covers remained readable after more than 800 years. The first time I peered into the darkness of those chambers, I expected nothing more than brittle fragments and stains that once were letters. Instead, what emerged were near-complete texts, treatises on logic, commentaries on law and medicine, philosophical songs passed from teacher to student. The writing, a looping script known as Siddham, glistened with faint colors and the marks of careful hands. There were pages so fresh they could have been written last week, not before the birth of Chaucer or Genghis Khan. It was almost too perfect. No scholar could believe that so many texts, so elegantly preserved, could have survived a destruction so sweeping. Rumors of forgeries flickered, but radiocarbon testing and chemical analysis told the truth. The vaults, built with thick walls and clever drainage, had protected their secrets from heat and loot and rot. A combination of chance and ancient engineering had tricked time. Inside, the air tasted stagnant, rich with the scent of old ink and pressed palm leaves. I read hymnals, math lectures, illustrated anatomical scrolls, even receipts for grant money given to visiting teachers. It was not just a library of religious devotion, but of an entire civilization's memory, breathtaking in its reach, intimate in its detail. Every manuscript offered a direct connection to minds and voices long gone, whispering instructions and stories in a tongue that danced between Sanskrit, Pali, and the practical languages of merchants and students. This accidental survival is heavy with irony. It was disaster, fire and flood, destruction and abandonment that created the conditions for preservation. The world's greatest library lives on, not because it was protected by force or law, but because nature intervened when humans could not. The flooded vault of Nalanda stands as a reminder that knowledge sometimes survives precisely where hope seems lost. And what of the other universities, the smaller monasteries, the hidden shrines? If Nalanda's lost library could sleep beneath silt for centuries, how many more caches of forgotten learning might wait beneath rivers, deserts, and cities? Each recovered name, each restored verse, points not only backward, but forward. There are secrets we have not yet uncovered, and as the expedition continues, I feel the tug of more vaults, more unlikely survivors, drawing us deeper into the mysteries of humanity's quest to remember. The next archive waits just beyond, half lost, half saved, beckoning with its promise of unexpected discovery. The hillside of Pergamon rises steep above the Turkish plain, its wind-cut stones scattered amid wildflowers and broken columns. Once, this was the seat of an empire's ambition, crowned by temples, theaters, and a library that tried to rival even Alexandria. But when I first climbed among its terraces, I was not searching for scrolls or codices. I was looking for a memory carved in something more enduring than paper. A catalog stone, the inventory of a vanished library, inscribed for eternity. The lost library of Pergamon was famous in its day. According to ancient reports, it housed hundreds of thousands of works, collected by kings who prized knowledge as dearly as gold. Some even said that the parchment or pergamena was invented here when Alexandria tried to cut off the town's papyrus supply. Scholars from across the world sent their writings, poets debated beneath porticos, and the echo of learning seemed endless, until it was not. At the close of the 1st century BC, Mark Antony gifted Pergamon's treasures, some say more than 200,000 scrolls, to Cleopatra. The shelves emptied, the silence settled, the greatest library vanished. Centuries passed, stones shifted, roofs caved in, fires blackened marble. The scrolls rotted in Egypt or were scattered by war and neglect. Yet beneath the layers of dust and myth, a miracle remained. In 1878, a German excavation turned up a heavy slab, granite weathered but etched with an orderly list. Titles, authors, categories, and in some cases even the opening lines, a record of what the library once held, chiseled not for beauty but for memory. My fingers traced the shallow grooves under a fierce Anatolian sun. Here were medical treatises, epics, comedies, and mathematics, philosophy, and lost histories. Rather than tombstone or tribute, every letter was a relentless reminder. Here is what was valued, here is what was lost. A library's ghost, perfectly arranged, outliving the books it described. The system was meticulous, works cataloged by subject and author, some annotated to note which scrolls were in use, which were being copied, which had wandered as far as Athens or Babylon. This was not simply inventory, it was a last stand against the oblivion that claims all libraries in the end. It is easy to romanticize the books, the lamplit study, and the parchment rustle. Yet as I read the catalog's scarred lines, I felt something deeper, an echo of anxiety from those long-dead librarians. Did they sense disaster coming? Did they inscribe stone because they knew this was the only record likely to survive? Each chiseled character stands both as pride and heartbreak, a signal flare sent forward in time for readers who would never see the manuscripts themselves. Many doubted at first that such a record could be genuine. There were rumors, whispered suspicions of forgery or misplaced stones. Yet experts confirmed the details, matching titles and scholars' names across known fragments of history. The more carefully the stone was read, the clearer it became. The librarians of Pergamon were fighting back against time, using ingenuity and rock in hopes that a collection might outlast its containers. Beneath the wide sky, with wild thyme and olives blooming at my feet, I marveled at the paradox. The books are gone, dissolved to dust or memory. What remains is a table of contents outwitting time, a stubborn part of humanity's long conversation with loss. If Pergamon stones hold the memory of one vanished library, how many others sleep beneath ruins, waiting for a wind or a shovel to reveal them? The answer is buried not only with books, but with the stories of those who loved them enough to record what was precious and why it mattered. And just beyond the Turkish hills, other vaults call. Promising stranger finds deeper puzzles and more lessons in the unexpected ways that history tries to endure. The ground at Taxila in northern Pakistan is littered with shards of history, bits of old pottery, broken pillars, the outline of a Buddhist stupa lost to time and tangled roots. It was here, among the stones of an empire that once stretched from Afghanistan to the Ganges, that workers unearthed an odd relic, a copper casket, heavy, sealed, and untouched for nearly 2 millennia. Inside was something stranger still, thin copper scrolls, tightly wound and engraved with Sanskrit in tiny, elegant lines, their words glinting in the mellow light as the casket yielded its secret. This was the testament of Kanishka, king of the Kushan Empire, one of history's great crossroad rulers. He reigned in the 2nd century, fostering trade and faith across Asia. But the discovery of his casket was baffling, almost too perfect. Metal scrolls are rare, copper corrodes, often beyond recovery. Yet these texts emerged clear and seemingly untouched, a medical compendium and ritual manual, so well preserved that doubts quickly sprang to life. Could they really be authentic? Were they the product of chance, of some unknown preservation alchemy, or just modern forgeries slipped into the cracks of time? Chemical analysis and radiocarbon dating would confirm their age. Experts studied the patina, the wear, even the microclimate inside the casket. The secret was in the seal, a tiny chamber, airtight, shielding the copper from humidity, oxygen, and the hungry claws of decay. For nearly 1,800 years, the knowledge inside slumbered in cold perfection. It spoke of healing, rituals, and a world where scholarship and faith mingled at the highest levels, entrusted not to libraries, but to the durable embrace of metal. The copper scrolls are more than relics. They embody intention. Someone, perhaps a royal scribe or the king himself, selected the content with care. Not everything survived in other forms, and these medical texts are rare, detailed, filled with observations and instructions to treat wounds, fevers, or spiritual malaise. Accompanying them are ritual prescriptions, carefully phrased to guide priests and novices in practices meant to envelop body and spirit alike. Around the casket's discovery, the site at Taxila buzzed with curiosity. No one expected such completeness. Lines and diagrams still sharp, even the binding wires preserved. The location was special too, a crossroads of cultures where Greek, Buddhist, Persian, and Indian traditions met, creating a melting pot of ideas. The scrolls reveal this mix in their language, blending vocabulary across civilizational boundaries. Standing in this dusty chamber, I felt the pressure of generations, their hopes for health and wisdom enfolded in copper and ritual. The casket's construction itself is a feat. Thick walls, fitted lid, and deliberate choice of alloy, a formula resistant to damage, a container made not just for show but for survival. The artisans who shaped it were both engineers and guardians. Was the casket meant as a time capsule, a message to the distant future, or a backup against the vagaries of war or neglect? No one knows for sure, but the precision points to something deliberate, a plan for permanence. As scientists, historians, and philosophers read the copper scrolls, new questions arise. What other such capsules wait beneath the earth, their knowledge still sleeping? Could the selection of texts here hint at deeper truths the Kushan scholars meant to pass onward? The testament of Kanishka reminds us that archiving isn't always about vast libraries. Sometimes survival depends on a handful of carefully chosen words, locked beyond harm, their wisdom shining from metal, waiting for its moment to be found. The expedition continues, and the mysteries abound. From copper to parchment, from casket to vault, the next archive beckons with the promise of another story saved, and many secrets yet to be revealed. At the threshold of the Gobi Desert, where sandstone pillars glow rose and gold in the dawn, the Mogao Caves near Dunhuang stand silent and secret. Their entrances are small and unassuming, hidden among cliffs and dust. Yet inside, a maze of chambers stretches more than a mile, carved and painted over centuries with the delicate brush and patient chisel of Buddhist monks, pilgrims, artists, and scribes. Dunhuang is a place where sand met silence, where devotion etched itself in rock, and where, for nearly 1,000 years, an entire archive lay sealed from the world in perfect preservation. History records an accidental discovery. In the year 1900, a Taoist caretaker named Wang Yuanlu, sweeping out the corners of his tiny shrine, found a bricked-up doorway behind a tangle of prayer flags and candle soot. What he uncovered astonished the world. A hidden library, 50,000 manuscripts stacked wall to wall, untouched by human hands since the 10th century. These were no ordinary books. Their pages were crafted from paper, silk, and palm leaf, filled with Buddhist sutras, calendars, medical texts, maps, hymns, legal codes, and even rare Christian gospels and Manichaean hymns from the Silk Road's farthest travelers. The air inside the chamber felt ancient, chill, almost sacred. The dryness of the desert, the absence of running water, the constant shade had conspired to create a refrigeration chamber before the science of freezers. As I lifted a scroll, the texture was unexpectedly supple, ink as vivid as fresh obsidian, even the thread binding each folio still strong. It is as if time built invisible walls holding back decay, preserving thought and art in their fullest form. For centuries, rumors had swirled about such a find. Some doubted that so many documents could survive in such completeness. Others whispered that Wang had planted the books, or that foreign collectors modified the collection. But careful study proved them wrong. The manuscripts trace a lineage through dynasties and languages: Chinese, Sanskrit, Tibetan, Uyghur, Persian, and others, written by countless hands representing religions and ideas as diverse as the Silk Road itself. Reading the Dunhuang manuscripts is a journey into the lived experience of a borderland world. A merchant's letter records the complaint of overcharging for salt. A prince requests prayers for his newborn daughter. A Buddhist monk lays out the schedule for daily meditation. Each scroll is a door into a life, a hope, a moment never intended to outlast its author, yet sustained by sand and luck. This library was not simply a collection, it was a fortress against forgetting. In some sections, texts were duplicated, translated, bundled in triplicate, designed for redundancy. Scribes worked day and night so that faith and learning would traverse mountains and empires. The hidden chamber, sealed at the end of the 10th century to protect against bandits and upheaval, became a time capsule, waiting for rediscovery. Every new manuscript, every painted banner raises questions. Who selected these texts for safekeeping? Was the secrecy an act of desperation or a foresight? As scholars decipher each line, patterns emerge: trading routes, spiritual migrations, moments when the world seemed both huge and intimately connected. The completeness is dazzling, but more alluring is what remains unseen. What other caches may sleep in cliffside caves, in sealed monasteries, in desert vaults still untouched? The frozen chronicles of Dunhuang remind us that memory flourishes in the margins, sometimes protected most fully by isolation and patience. And as every line of script is unveiled, each story reanimates the voices who dared to believe that learning could survive even the longest night. Beyond Dunhuang, more libraries wait, alive in silence, urging explorers on through lingering sands and hidden doors, toward the next miracle of survival. In a landscape shaped by wind and the endless reach of Sahara sands, Timbuktu rises with an air of mystery along the Niger River. The streets are lined with mud brick houses, thick wooden doors, and the faint trace of camel caravans. For centuries, this Malian city was whispered about as a place of forbidden riches and intellect, where scholars carried secrets in the folds of their robes and texts crossed the desert in the cover of darkness. The greatest treasures of Timbuktu, though, are not gold or jewels, but pages. Shelves upon shelves of medieval manuscripts gathered over 600 years, defying the relentless destruction of flame, invasion, and climate. Standing inside one of these family libraries, the air is chalky and warm, tinged with the tang of old leather and dust. Manuscripts rest in carved wooden boxes, bundled in goatskin or wrapped in cloth. Their pages are crumbling, yes, but most are astonishingly intact. The words leap out in bold strokes of Arabic and Songhai and Fulfuld, revealing poems, astronomical charts, legal contracts, medical treatises, and the long records of Africa's monarchs. Some include diagrams and stylized maps, hints of worlds both visible and invisible. How did these manuscripts survive when so many other archives vanished? Timbuktu's preservation story is a marvel of ingenuity. Books were never stored in vast public buildings. Instead, they remained in private homes, passed from parent to child, each family a secret guardian of knowledge. When conquerors swept through the city, when fire threatened to devour its secrets, the families hid their manuscripts, burying them in desert dunes, locking them in cellars, smuggling them in bundles. The techniques are ingenious. Some manuscripts were waxed to repel humidity, others dusted with herbs that drive away insects. Libraries were built with thick walls, tiny windows, and low, cool floors that resisted Saharan heat. There were even local recipes for ink, made from acacia gum and date palm, that lasted far longer than European parchment or Chinese paper. These innovations show not only technical skill, but an understanding of preservation chemistry passed down through oral tradition and patient trials. Yet the survival of Timbuktu's library is not merely technical, it is a story of bravery, community, and shared purpose. In recent decades, the threat of extremist violence grew. Black-clad fighters arrived, determined to erase what they called dangerous knowledge. Families responded with quiet resistance, bundling manuscripts away in the night, hiding them in remote villages or floating them across river in secret. Many texts vanished temporarily, kept alive in the memory and vigilance of those sworn to protect them. When I first examined these manuscripts, the completeness felt astonishing, almost suspicious. How could so much survive? The answer is a mosaic: luck, loyalty, invention, and the refusal of a city to surrender its wisdom. Scholars have traced chains of provenance, charting the journey of texts from Moorish Spain, Persia, Arabia, and lands even farther, showing how ideas flowed not just north and south, but across the crescent of history. Reading through the Volcanic Library of Timbuktu, you find knowledge alive, sometimes practical, sometimes sublime, always personal. There are formulas for medicines, epic songs of battle, family trees that stretch over centuries. Each manuscript pulses with the hope of those who sheltered it, a link in the chain connecting generations through crisis and peace. Many questions remain. What unknown texts still sleep in secret caches? What innovations of preservation await rediscovery? How much wisdom has been lost or yet to be found? The story winds on as we search other archives, in hidden homes, distant mountains, or deep beneath the deserts, chasing down the next miracle of survival and the endless appetite of memory. The Pyramid of the Sun dominates the city of Teotihuacan, its shadow stretching long over cracked plazas and the Avenue of the Dead. Approaching its base at sunrise, the stone feels cold, silent, and ancient, betraying little of the secrets buried far below. For generations, historians believed no manuscripts survived from Mesoamerica's legendary cities. Spanish conquerors burned the codices, and a millennium of earthquakes and volcanic ash buried the rest. But Teotihuacan hides its own answers deep in the mineral heart of the land. Archaeologists found them slowly, layer by layer, beneath the pyramid's northern flank, a sealed chamber where obsidian flakes glimmered among pigment jars and stone tablets. Here, in a microclimate untouched by sun and wind, fragments of text endured for nearly 15 centuries. The discovery defied all expectations. The materials were not traditional books, nor the widely known Maya pictographs, but something stranger and more resilient. Painted mineral pigments, layered with binders made from volcanic ash and tree resin, clung to stone slabs and bits of bark paper. Sometimes the marks had migrated into the obsidian itself, forming ghostly lines. Shadows of words nested within rock. Holding one of these fragile slabs, I felt both awe and confusion. The texture was smooth and glassy, yet still etched with the faint image of glyphs, records of ceremonies, genealogies, and tribute lists. Many texts revealed colors seldom seen elsewhere, deep reds and greens mixed with volcanic glass shavings. The careful mix of minerals, resins, and plant dyes had created a shell almost impenetrable to water and bacteria. Even under centuries of volcanic pressure, the pigments remained bold, preserved by accident and ingenuity. The Obsidian Archive raises questions with every fragment. Were the people of Teotihuacan aware their techniques would anchor memory against disaster? How did they learn to use volcanic materials as preservatives? Some clues lie in Mesoamerican myth, where obsidian symbolized both darkness and clarity, a portal between worlds. Perhaps the scribes, craftspeople, and priests knew their writings would face not just conquest, but the forces of fire and earth. Interpreting the texts, specialists found hints of a sprawling bureaucracy, a web of traders, priests, architects, and artisans. Tribute records documented gifts from distant valleys, ceremonial dates were paired with astronomical sightings, and family stories mapped territories and alliances long lost to oral tradition. Some fragments even invoked the gods to protect the archives themselves, wrapping sacred memory within both spiritual and geological defenses. Yet, the Obsidian Archive is not whole. For every slab recovered, dozens are lost, shattered by shifting stone or crushed under the pyramid's weight. Some pigments remain stubbornly hidden, their formulas unknown, locked in chemistry that modern science is still learning to unravel. This scarcity challenges us, the tantalizing completeness of a record nearly destroyed, the puzzle of reading memory from stone, glass, and earth. Amid the silence of Teotihuacan's inner chambers, it is easy to imagine the hands that worked here, artists grinding pigment with volcanic shards, scribes layering words and symbols like spells against oblivion. Their labor remains, even as their names and stories drift into myth. The Obsidian Archive reminds us that preservation sometimes emerges not from human intent alone, but from the unpredictable dance of natural forces, mineral and myth entwined. And as the expedition moves on, deeper into tunnels, toward distant peaks or underground rivers, more mysteries whisper in the echoes. The promise of memory written in materials even older than civilization itself, awaiting the next explorer's touch. The road to Tabo winds high into the Indian Himalayas, past crumbled stupas, cold rivers, and villages so ancient they seem to dissolve into stone and cloud. Nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, the monastery waits, a patchwork of mud brick, white plaster, and prayer flags fluttering in sharp winds. As the sun sets, the air turns glassy cold, and the only sound is the low chant of monks carrying oil lamps behind thick adobe walls. Home to Buddhist practice for over 1,000 years, Tabo's true marvel is not only its age, but its library. Texts preserved by nature and tradition, where cold itself became the greatest guardian. Inside, the halls are hushed, shadows pooling in corners as the flicker of butter lamps reveals murals in luminous ochre, blue, and gold. Yet it is in the back rooms, behind locked wooden doors and earthen shelves, that the miracle of Tabo's preservation becomes clear. Dozens of manuscripts, rolled and stacked in bundles, sleep under rough-hewn beams. They are written on birch bark and handmade paper, wrapped in faded silk and mohair, their script looping in elegant Tibetan Sanskrit and Prakrit lines. The secret to their survival lies less in ritual than in climate. Here, high in the mountains, nights drop below freezing for 9 months a year. Humidity is almost non-existent, and the air's thin dryness slows the steady march of mold, insects, and decay. Long before refrigeration was understood, the monks of Tabo depended on natural cold. Texts were laid carefully in rooms that functioned like ancient ice boxes, where almost nothing spoiled or rotted. Even in summer's brief thaw, the thick walls kept the temperature stable, creating a constant chill that preserved ink and paper for centuries. When scholars first arrived in the late 20th century, many doubted the reports. Whole manuscripts, some over 1,000 years old, still crisp and readable, their margins filled with side notes and doodled diagrams. The inks remained vivid, untouched by time's usual stains, and the cords binding each folio snapped not from mold, but from centuries of tension. Tests confirmed the impossible. Tabo's accidental deep freeze had rescued history from obscurity. But preservation does not mean stasis. The Tabo Library is alive, a working collection, not a museum. Monks pray with these texts each morning, copying verses during winter's darkest months, making notes for those who will follow. Some scrolls are so familiar the words have become music, recited from memory as fresh snow piles against the monastery gates. New manuscripts are added to the shelves as old ones slowly retire, a living cycle of memory and devotion. Stories and secrets drift through the library's pages. Treatises on Buddhist law, philosophical arguments, delicate paintings of saints and bodhisattvas, even records of local courts and rainfall. Small surprises hide in the margins. A monk's recipe for herbal tea, a joke about snow leopards, prayers for new crops. The wisdom of the Himalayas is not only spiritual, but also practical, woven from the long patience needed to survive in high places. As I watch candlelight play across parchment and birch bark, I realize how unlikely this archive truly is. A blend of faith, circumstance, and geography's cold embrace. The Ice Monastery of Tabo is both a relic and a heartbeat, a reminder that sometimes the world conspires to create sanctuary, even in its harshest corners. What other libraries rest high in mountains lost in fog and frost, kept safe by nature's own ingenuity, the journey winds onward, past icy peaks and prayer wheels, searching for more memories waiting in the folds of winter and the silence of fallen snow. Each step draws us closer to the edge of discovery, where the past shivers quietly but endures, preserved in ice and the promise of another dawn. Salt clings to my skin as I step from the boat onto the soft floor of the Mediterranean, far from the traffic of Alexandria and the copper sun that rises over Egypt's ruined coasts. Here the water shifts endlessly, silt and shimmering light wrapping the outlines of stone columns and half-vanished statues. I am not searching for treasure but for memory, because beneath the sea lie the sunken remains of Thonis Heracleon, a city lost more than 1,000 years ago, and what may be the most unexpected library of all. Long ago, this port was the bustling gate to Alexandria's wonders, its warehouses crammed with papyrus scrolls, ledgers carved in wood, crates of bronze documents, ritual manuals for priests, and the records of merchants counting goods from a dozen distant empires. When the city slipped beneath the waves, swallowed by earthquakes and the slow creep of Nile flooding, it carried its documents down with it. For centuries, no one believed the stories, talk of whole archives lost to the shifting dark, of bookshelves preserved not by fire but by mud and brine. Recent years changed everything. Divers plunging into cloudy water discovered stone crates packed with ledgers, wax tablets sealed in sediment, scroll tubes still latched shut. Some crates held the imprints of papyrus fibers gone, but shadows fixed in mud, the ghosts of text revealed by sonar and careful excavation. Bronze scroll tubes opened to reveal tattered shreds of ancient writing, the words brushed by the gentle tide and preserved where air and sunlight could do no harm. The science of preservation beneath the sea is filled with paradox. Water should destroy paper and wood. Yet here, the lack of oxygen, the cold embrace of the deep, and the fine silt covering everything acted as guardians. In the darkest corners of a warehouse, sediment layers built up year after year, protecting text from insects, fire, and decay. Many items are so fragile now, they can only be studied with cameras and remote arms. Glimpses of order emerge. Lists of goods in Egyptian hieratic script, Greek records of legal cases, receipts from merchants traveling to Cyprus and Carthage. Ritual documents hint at a priesthood determined to keep Alexandria's traditions alive, even as the waves claimed their shores. There are tales of ships loaded with scrolls setting out from this harbor, ready to replenish Alexandria's great library, or to carry its fragments elsewhere as fires raged and empires fell. No one knows if these ships ever arrived, or if their cargoes rest yet with them at the bottom of the sea. The proximity to Alexandria suggests that knowledge was valued as much as gold, perhaps even more. The loss is profound, but the survival even more so. Documents that should have perished now reappear, text, imprints, and clues to the daily life of the ancient Mediterranean world. Working in the damp silence, I am struck by a mystery. Why did these libraries endure so many forces, storm, water, tide, and time? Was their preservation pure chance, or a secret technology, careful packing, rituals of protection handed from scribe to sailor? Each discovery poses new puzzles. Did Alexandria's culture of archiving extend out to its harbor cities, spinning networks that guarded texts even centuries after flames destroyed the central library? Salt and silt erase as much as they reveal, but each shelf recovered from Thonis Heraclian is a promise of memory saved against destiny, of knowledge surviving where hope failed. Archival fragments like these whisper not just of commerce or ritual, but of longing, ingenuity, and the stubborn wish to be remembered. The sea holds more than the ruins of stones. It carries the voices of cities that refuse to fade. As we surface, the depths ripple below. Who can say what other secrets rest in sunken towns and drowned ports, waiting for the next expedition to bring their shadows into the light? The quest for lost libraries continues beneath water and land, wherever the promise of memory endures and the past waits to be found. Moonlight settles across my camp as I write these final notes, the night thick with the sound of distant wind and the low murmur of insects. Each shadow reminds me of the libraries I have chased and found, placed by human hands, concealed by fate, and sometimes protected by the land itself. After years of searching, with dust on my boots and fragments in my pack, I understand that every archive tells a double story. It is a record of what people treasured, and it is a testament to the strange ways in which the world chooses what will endure. Every lost library, from fires under Babylon to ice high in the Himalayas, whispers the same truth. There is preservation in chaos, safety in accident, and resilience born from the hopes of those we will never meet. Some texts survive despite disaster, some because of it, each one an echo reaching across centuries for someone willing to listen. Memory is not always curated neatly. Sometimes it sprawls, sometimes it hides, sometimes it waits for purpose to return. To explore these archives is to be reminded how fragile and powerful our history really is. The pages and tablets we recover do more than narrate wars and laws. Each one carries the laughter, the secrets, the fears, and the aspirations of a multitude. Realizing this, I find a humility I did not expect. We may think ourselves distant from ages past, but every record has a way of making the ancient personal, even urgent. Every artifact that washes out of mud, sand, or sea reminds us we are part of a story still unfolding. Tonight, the fire burns low, casting patterns on the canvas walls. I think of the mysteries still locked beneath stone and water, the manuscripts yet unread, the voices not yet heard. For every answer, new questions rise. Another piece of the puzzle. Another secret swallowed by the ages. But I have learned one thing on this path. History does not whisper, it waits. And the journey is never truly finished. As the stars climb overhead, I invite you to continue. The expedition belongs to all who are curious enough to chase memory through darkness and light. The temples, the ruins, and the archives wait for discovery, for wonder, for the next hand ready to turn a page that has endured the impossible.